Hey, second grade. Today we are going to be learning about adverbs. So let's go ahead and get started on that. All right, guys, let's get started on adverbs. What are they? Let's discuss. It's okay if you don't know right now, but judging on the title, I think that's going to give us a hint. There's a familiar word in there that we're already know about. But first, let's review. This may be a big hint from what I last said, but a verb is an action. For example, run, walk, sprint. Can you think of any verbs? So, what is an adverb? An adverb describes a verb. It tells us how, where, and when. So, let's give an example. I quickly ran to the ice cream truck. In this case, quickly is the adverb. It is describing how I ran. Let's watch a video.
Downtown, inside, off, out, down, upstairs and there. All these words are adverbs because they tell us where. Adverbs can describe a verb, they don't describe a noun. They tell us when, they tell us where, they also tell us how. What kind of word tells about a verb? Adverbs, adverbs, when, where, how. What kind of word tells about a verb now? Adverbs, adverbs, when, where, how. What kind of word tells about a verb? Adverbs, adverbs, when, where, how. What kind of word tells about a verb now? Adverbs, adverbs, when, where, how. Tomorrow, often, never, once, sometimes and then. All these words are adverbs because they tell us when. Adverbs can describe a verb, they don't describe a noun. They tell us when, they tell us where, they also tell us how. What kind of word tells about a verb? Adverbs, adverbs, when, where, how. What kind of word tells about a verb now? Adverbs, adverbs, when, where, how. What kind of word tells about a verb? Adverbs, adverbs, when, where, how. What kind of word tells about a verb now? Adverbs, adverbs, when, where, how. Loudly, quickly, carefully, fast and sadly. All these words are adverbs. How's what they're telling me? Adverbs can describe a verb. They don't describe a noun. They tell us when, they tell us where. They also tell us how. What kind of word tells about a verb? Adverbs, adverbs, when, where, how. What kind of word tells about a verb now? Adverbs, adverbs, when, where, how. What kind of word tells about a verb? Adverbs, adverbs, when, where, how. What kind of word tells about a verb now? Adverbs, adverbs, when, where, how.
So, second graders, as we saw in the video, some adverbs often end in ly. For example, some words are quickly, calmly, or quietly. These adverbs often answer how something was done. I calmly walked through the park. I quietly snuck into the fridge for a snack. So remember, adverbs describe how, where, and when for a verb. So let's go ahead and do some practice, guys. So Mr. Bryce happily taught the class. What is the adverb in this sentence? I'll give you guys a second to think about it. You can always pause if you need to. So the adverb in this sentence is happily. It is describing how Mr. Bryce taught the class. We have another one here. Miss Gina went above the clouds when she flew in the airplane. What is the adverb in this sentence? This one may be a little trickier. I'll give you a moment here. The adverb in this sentence is above. It is describing where Miss Gina went in relation to the clouds. I put is there, but if you look here, went, that is our verb, okay? In relation to these two. So I went above. Let's practice another one. Mom, is it time for dinner yet? What is the adverb in this sentence? This one is a little bit different. Yet. It is describing when it will be time for dinner. When. It's one of those time ones. All right, let's do some more practice here, guys. So we are going to go through this together, and we're going to read the sentences, and we are going to circle which is the adverb. So let's start with the first one. Uncle Randolph loudly ate his corn on the cob at the picnic. I'll give you a moment to think about it. Now remember, describes how, where, or when an action happens. So in this case, it would be loudly. Uncle Randolph loudly ate his corn. That is describing how he ate his corn. Let's go on to the next one. It was nice to see my mother sitting comfortably on the couch with a book. Think about what an adverb is. Remember how, where, and when. Maybe look for the verb because it describes an action. My mother is sitting comfortably on the couch with a book. All right, next one, guys. My family will travel to Canada by train tomorrow. So let's take a look at this one. My family will travel. There's no li word, well, word ending in ly near will. That is our verb. Will travel. Well, travel's also a verb. By train to Canada by train tomorrow. Remember how, where, and when. In this case, it would be when. We are describing when we will travel to Canada. Let's go on to the next one. Julie jogged outside before the start of school. So, Julie jogged outside before the start of school. Where would the adverb be in that one? We're wondering how, where, and when this action may have happened. If we look at the sentence, the verb is jogged. Oh, well, actually, it would be before the start of school. Outside could also be an adverb as well in this case, because it's describing where she jogged, and it's also describing when she jogged. So that one's a little tricky. Let's go on to the next one. Mabel and Shannon quickly cleaned up the split hot chocolate. Excuse me. So, let's find our verb first. That may help us. I see cleaned as a verb. That is describing what Mabel and Shannon did. Now, if we look around the word cleaned, we'll get a hint. You can see an li word quickly right here. So that one would be our adverb. It is describing how she cleaned. Okay? Whoops. All right. So next one. Bobby went swimming yesterday at his friend Steve's house. So, where is our verb? Went swimming. So, That would be our verb, swimming. And we need to think about how, where, and when this action happened. So if we think about those three, we should be able to figure out that yesterday is describing when our action happened. Bobby went swimming yesterday at his friend Steve's house. Let's move on to the next one. Number 7. Thomas, please carefully place the dish back onto the shelf. Again, how, where, and when. Our verb is place because he's placing the dish onto the shelf. That is Thomas's action. And we are looking for how, where, and when he did that. In this case, it would be carefully because it is describing how he placed the dish, or how he is supposed to place the dish onto the shelf, whoever is asking him. All right, next one. Lila and Warren played chess here. Well, this is a really short sentence, so it should be fairly easy. Lila and Warren played chess here. How, where, and when did they play chess? They played chess here, so it would be, here would be our adverb because it's describing where they played chess. All right, our next one is Auntie Paula and Uncle Sean left the party early. So let's take a look at this and find our verb first. Auntie Paula and Uncle Sean left. They left the party early. So left is our verb. And now we need to think about how, where, and when our verb is happening. So if they left the party early, our adverb would be early because it is describing when they left the party. Number 10 is Sherman accidentally dropped the marbles and they rolled down the hill into the drain. This is a really long sentence, but let's take a look here. Sherman accidentally dropped the marbles and they rolled down the hill into the drain. There's a couple of verbs here. First, I see dropped. Sherman accidentally dropped and they rolled down the hill. So, with two verbs, it's a little harder, but if you take a look here, we have a clue. Remember, we talked about how some adverbs end in ly. If you look above, we have a couple more that have ended in ly, and quickly as well, carefully, early. So, we know that this is probably going to be our adverb. Also, if you ask the question of how, where, and when, you can see that it is describing how Sherman dropped the marbles. It's not saying Sherman dropped the marbles. That would be different than saying Sherman accidentally dropped the marbles, because it's an accident. So that, my friends, is our adverb. Let's go through some more. This is our last practice sheet, and then we will be done. So we're going to circle the adverb in each sentence. The boy calmly took his test. So, our verb is took, because he took his test. We're thinking of where, when, and how. What it's saying up here, how, where, when, however you want to say it. The boy calmly took his test. It is describing how he took his test. He took it calmly. Next, we have the team eagerly awaited their next opponent. So, our verb is awaited, because they're awaiting their opponent. We know that we're talking about the team, so we also have ly here to help us. So it is eagerly. It is describing how they awaited their next opponent. They were excited. So number 3, the player politely asked the official a question. So again, we have our ly word here. So that is going to be our clue. The player politely asked. Asked is our verb. It is describing how he asked. So that, my friends, is our adverb. Next, we have the teams shook hands sincerely after the game. Let's look for our verb. Our verb is shook. The teams shook hands. Let's think about when, where, and how they may have shook hands. This one actually has 2, but we will just go with the one that I circled sincerely. The teams shook hands sincerely after the game. After, in this case, would also be an adverb. So, there's two here, but we're just going to go with sincerely as to not confuse ourselves. So the next one is the girl clumsily walked to her seat. So, our verb in this sentence is the girl walked to her seat. And how did she do it? How? She did it clumsily. So that is our adverb. Our next sentence is the boy walked dangerously close to the edge. The boy walked dangerously close to the edge. We're thinking about when, where, and how. How did he walk? That is our verb, right? He walked. He walked dangerously. We also have that ly clue for ourselves. So that, my friends, is our answer. Next, I barely finished my test on time. So finished is our verb. If we look, we have an ly word to help ourselves. But if we didn't have that, we also have when, where, and how. How did he finish his test? Or when did he finish his test? Excuse me. He barely finished it. Or excuse me, that would be when. My bad. He barely finished his test on time. Or I barely finished my test on time. All right, next. The boy foolishly talked back to his teacher. Uh-oh, that's a big no-no. So, our verb is talked. The boy talked, or the boy foolishly talked to his teacher. Now, have our ly again. That's a really great clue. Foolishly would be our answer. It is describing how he talked back to his teacher. The woman joyously shouted aloud. So, the woman joyously shouted aloud. Now, shouted is our verb. We have ly, and we know it is describing how she shouted. She shouted what? Joyously. The woman shouted joyously, or the woman joyously shouted aloud. That is our adverb, my friends. All right, guys, that concludes adverbs. So there should be some online activities for you guys to work on. If you don't have those, there are also worksheets as well. If you have any questions, please let us know. Definitely want to hear from you guys. All right, bye.